Hello everybody. I just thought I'd do a little bit of a different introduction to the stream today. I'm going to start doing little different weird intros from time to time now. This time, I thought I'd do a little bit of a throwback to a little bit of music that we had during the Football Manager streams. We'd have a little bit of a dance along with it. But Bimbus Nimbus can go away because Bimbus Nimbus is not the main topic of conversation today. The main topic of conversation specifically surrounds Leeds United having announced their travelling squad for the USA Tour. The USA Tour where this coming weekend, I believe, is going to be the first match, in which we face Wrexham, and then we face Sunderland, and then we face Liverpool, which is sort of increasing in difficulty. I think that's a pretty damn good way to do that. It makes sure that we face all sorts of opponents, but some people are already getting a little bit angry, a little bit peeved, a little bit miffed at what the squad is looking like. I apologise, Fergal. Baby things happened. It's something that all people who parent have to deal with. It meant that I was pushed back a little bit, but I'm here now, and that's what really matters. So, we'll take a little bit of a dive through what the squad is, and a little bit of a dive through what people have decided that they will be angry about today. So, specifically, the squad that Leeds United are bringing on their tour 2026 in a significantly lower definition than I honestly expected from this image. I've been staring at a picture of Daniel Farke for over 90 minutes. But you're not going to complain, because it's a good image to have. So, the squad looks a little something like this, and I'm going to do a rundown as quickly as I feasibly can, and then we'll get on to what the sort of drama is. Aronson, Ampadu, Beal, Bogle, Bornow, Cairns, Calvert-Lewin, Chadwick, Cresswell, Crew, Nonto, Gruev, Goodmanson, James Justin, James Justin, very nice, Lane, Lainu, Longstaff, Mahady, Mills, Muharamovic, Metcha, Ombang, Perry, Pickles, Piru, Rodon, Stack, Tanaka, Wilson. Everyone that is a senior player that you would expect to be a part of the squad this coming season is present and expected, except for one person, and this is one of the main sort of inspirations of people being a little bit pissed off. Noah Okafor, you might have wondered why I didn't scroll down at that point, and it's because I wanted to do a dramatic reveal, and everyone loves a dramatic reveal from time to time. Yes, this dramatic reveal is that Noah Okafor has been given an extended break due to reaching the quarterfinal of the World Cup with Switzerland, which is why he is not named in the travelling squad. Now, I understand why some people have been a little bit irritated at this, because, to be fair, he didn't really play any football when he was away with Switzerland. So a lot of people have looked at the situation and gone, well, why does he need a break? Because he's not really played at all. He should be completely fresh and fine and good. He legally has to. That is ultimately the summary of why he's getting a little bit of an extended break. The rules under FIFA state that any player, it doesn't matter who you play for, it doesn't matter how much football you play, needs to have a 3-week break at some point in the year. Now, with Noah Okafor being at the World Cup a little bit longer than expected, making it to the quarterfinals, that pushed him a little bit further than the likes of Brendan Aronson, who is on this list. Which means that he will need to stay away for a little bit longer, and let's be honest, there's not really a point in saying, hey Noah, do you mind taking your holiday over in America? Because then he's still doing club duties and he's still not getting that break. It is a legal requirement for Noah Okafor to not travel with the squad. I know a lot of people have been spooked by the fact that he's not travelling, but it is one that makes sense. It is one that sort of needs to happen. It can't be helped. Noah Okafor, not part of the travelling squad, but that's fine. Let's not be worried about it. He'll still be doing various bits of fitness training and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't need to be at Thorpe Arch or wherever we are for our international hollybubs to do all of that. He can just do that himself and join up with the squad again. Especially since he's not like a brand new signing, he doesn't need that full year of sort of stuff. And then we get into these two, which are the sources of even more irritation, particularly underneath the tweet, right? So let's have a look at where I was with a series of tweets that did a surprisingly powerful number of likes. And yes, I agree, Rich. It is hilarious that we're having this little bit of a meltdown. I don't quite understand where it's come from. But This is the Okafor one, saying that it's ridiculous, he should be fresh as a daisy, etc., etc. It's not a case of he's not fresh, it's a case of he can't be there, like, legally. But there's the Ramazani conversation, including KDH17 saying Ramazani has been treated awful, what a waste of a signing, I feel for him. Embarrassingly weak squad, an embarrassing treatment of Ramazani. I think this is what I'm meaning, in that a lot of people seem deeply pissed that Ramazani hasn't travelled, and I would quite like to sort of poke through those people's brains. Because if anyone looked at last season and thought that what we needed was Laji Ramazani, I would be incredibly confused. Laji Ramazani is primarily a winger that plays on the left flank. This is something that is known, it is understood by him and fans alike. Laji plays over on that side of the pitch. That side of the pitch. I was trying to work out which direction because I know the camera's flipped, but it's hard to remember sometimes. Which means that he is already behind Noah Okafor in the hierarchy. That's fine, that's understood, we all knew this, that's normal. He's also behind Willy Gnonto in the hierarchy, who also prefers to play out on the left. He's also behind Lucas Mecha in the hierarchy, who when he's playing on the wing, prefers to play out on the left. So, even before you consider the fact that he's fairly low down in the pecking order, or before you consider, playing style-based things, he's already down here. He's already not getting minutes. He's already probably on the list of players to sell, which a lot of people are adding the likes of Piru to. At least Piru was sort of necessary in the early stages of last season. Laji Ramazani, not once. And then you get to the playstyle stuff. And then you get to the fact that in comparison to those other wingers, including the likes of a Dan James, who I'm including sort of people that can go on the other flank now, he doesn't really track back. Which is, let's be honest, a little bit of a must. You need to drop in because we are against more difficult opponents now. Yeah, he didn't have to do it that much in the Championship, but even when he did need to do it, he didn't do it. So when we're in a position where we need to be a little bit more defensive, we need to be more secure, we need to be more passive, why then would we ever think, let's get the guy back in that didn't do the defensive stuff, that didn't do the passive stuff, that didn't do the looking after stuff? It would be incredibly unwise for us to lean on Laji Ramazani in that instance because, well, he's not really shown that he can be lent on. It would ultimately be a very, very, very bad idea. So, for me, I think it makes sense for... And to be clear, this isn't just a Laji thing. This isn't just a case of Laji Ramazani went out on loan last season and therefore we considered him not worthy of sticking around this season. It's beyond that. It's Laji Ramazani went out last season, but guess who else went out last season? Jack Harrison. Guess who's not in the squad? Jack Harrison. Guess who else went out last season? Max Vober. Guess who's not in the squad? There we go. Joe Gelhardt. Didn't go out. Not in the squad. It all sort of adds up to all the players that were out on loan. We're on a list of players that we don't particularly want or need for the foreseeable future. So if you're looking at that situation and going, well, this is clearly a problem because I personally want X, Y, or Z player, they're not going to play anyway. So at this point, you're just saying, I want Laji Ramazani because if we have 4 or 5 wingers injured, because I would ask anyone that is looking at the sort of number of players that we've got at the moment and looking down the list, I would ask anyone who looks at that and says, we need Laji Ramazani, which of those players ahead of you wouldn't you pick? Which of those players ahead of you would you sell instead? Because I think Mecha has more value than Ramazani because he can fill in multiple positions. I think Gnonto has more value because he can also play inside, can also play in the 9 if we desperately need, and has a higher ceiling than Laji Ramazani. I think if you're considering like Laji Ramazani being better than Okafor, then you're really huffing on some copium. But this is a thing that we really need to consider. The fact that the number of people that will scream that, well, we're not Sentiment FC anymore and all this kind of stuff, and are simultaneously screaming out for Laji Ramazani, need to look at the fact that there's a little bit of a double standard going on there. Twescard, I didn't say every fan was angry, I said some fans was angry. It is slight, Tosh, however, welcome to YouTube, sometimes you need to get creative with your titles. Mecha's adorable. Yeah, Mecha's great, and I think he's a pretty big part of the sort of squad chemistry. which is another important thing. The only thing that gives me hope is reminding myself that all teams have a battalion of fans who aren't happy unless they're complaining. Yeah, that's true. And Mateo Joseph, absolutely right, is not there because he is very, very, very injured. He managed to completely crock himself playing for Mallorca. He wasn't especially impressive for Mallorca either. I know that when he comes back, there will undoubtedly be people rallying behind him and going, we've lost 2 or 3 games in a row. We need Mateo Joseph back in the squad. And they won't have realised that he went off to La Liga, did shit all, wasn't even played in the 9 for the majority of the time because he wasn't good enough there. So they just said, I suppose we need a left winger, I guess. And then there we go. It's one of those. You effectively drop Ramazani's price by not taking him. I don't know if you do because I feel like he's already in discussions. It's not a case that his price will drop because his quality is still the same. He still played in La Liga for a lot of last season, Largi Ramazani. But the question now more surrounds, if you're asking why didn't Leeds take him, I'm presuming because we don't want him injured. There's no point bringing him to America, putting him through the sort of training camp that everyone else is going to go through and maybe playing him in a couple of friendlies, and then he gets injured and suddenly you can't sell him. That feels like it's more risk than it's worth, and we'd ultimately be sort of inviting problems on ourselves. And I'd rather we not do that. I'd rather we be a bit cleverer than that. We'd be lucky to get 5 million for RG. I think we get more than 5. I think that's incredibly negative as ways of looking at it go. It would be absolutely bonkers if all we got for Largi Ramazani was 5 million quid. It's not going to be the case. At the very least, we'll get book value. And when it comes to at the very least, hopefully at the very least, we'll get another 8 subscribers relatively soon because that's how far we are away from 7,900. Is that a subtle way of asking nicely? Absolutely not. But if you're not subscribed, it's an easy button to press just down here. And I'm going to check my analytics in real time, actually, which could be a mistake, but I want to sort of prove a point to people. There we go. Welcome to the back end of YouTube. And then we zoom in, just so I can sort of show off the numbers without showing off the other numbers. There we go. And then we press F. Nope, that's screenshot. Then we press F11. Cool. Nice. And then we go to the chart. And then we go to the big chart, the one that says the number of views that I've got, right? And then I hop over to monitor 2. Oh, I've hidden it. Hold on. I'll move this for a moment. You see this number down here? 54% of you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel. Why is that? It's one simple click. That's all you need to do. Do that, please. Thank you. I would massively appreciate it. And I'd give you a hug if I'd see you in the real world, I suppose. I don't know. But either way, it'd be massively appreciated if you could subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Rama's injured. The last I've heard nothing about an injury, to be honest. Would be nice if Willie did stay at Leeds, always smiling. He's turned out to be a humble lad, a knuckle down, a bit of a joke, keeping lad spirits up. Yeah, I think Willie sticking around is probably the best way for us to go here, because I think if we just say, no, we can get rid, at the end of the day, that'll be more of a mistake than anything. Like, how old is Willie Nonto now? Because he's still on the young side. Willie Nonto is currently 22. It's easy to forget that he is just 22 years old. And when it comes to players that are ultimately developing, it's fine to have a 22-year-old sat on your bench. It's like we saw him play in the Premier League fairly early on, and it's like we saw him play consistently in the Championship fairly early on in his career, and we kind of went, well, now he needs to be playing all the time. No, because if you play him all the time, you're A, putting a bit more pressure on him, B, putting more physical pressure on him because he's having to play a hell of a lot more football, and the body doesn't go through that many rigours too well. And ultimately, I think he can still grow into one of the better players. Like, people are looking at someone like Muharemovic as a player that has a ridiculously high ceiling. He's not reached it yet, but if he spends time at the right club, he will get there. And people are saying the same thing about Shea Charles. He's a young player that has a lot of potential to grow and improve and all this kind of stuff. But they're the same age as Willie Nonto. They're slightly older than Willie Nonto. So that's why I'm sort of happy enough with keeping Nonto around for a bit as long as he is happy. If he's happy to develop behind Okafor and learn from various other players at the squad, at the club, that's the one. I'm struggling a little bit. Ah, well, it's fantastic. Like, if he's happy enough, keep him here. He will learn, he will develop, he will become that sort of column in the first team. If we just sell him now, we're missing out on a fairly big opportunity, I think. Joe, the 54% don't have an actual account, or don't give a fuck if you get 3 subs a stream. They're just here for news, or you clickbait them. I would never clickbait people. No, I would market my streams with good titles. I wouldn't clickbait, because I don't really lie in my titles. That's, for me, the definition of clickbait. If you've actively lied, then that's clickbait. But if you've stayed within the truth, then I don't see the problem. But you can understand why I'm sort of trying to ask if people will subscribe, because I did this morning in the video. I did one of the sort of call-outs of this many of you aren't subscribed, and 17 people subscribed off the back of it. So you might as well push, you know? There's no point not asking. I suppose that's the way that I'm going to phrase that. Nonto's useless at defending back. Better to pick him up and throw the ball at him. No, I think Nonto's reasonable. I think we've spoiled ourselves with people that are better at the tracking back and defending stuff. Whereas Nonto, yeah, it's not his game, but then again, he's a forward, so it's not always going to work, but he's still a little bit better than Ramazani at it, so I'm not too mad at that. Hey up, Joe, you okay, pal? I'm doing alright, thank you. Do you think we'll get Brant and Charles and Trafford? I think we get at least one of the 3. I don't know which. I did see that we've gotten a little bit of a boost in the... what's his name? James Trafford, there we go, in the James Trafford conversation, because a lot of the discussion was around the fact that Aston Villa might want to make a move, because why wouldn't they? They thought Emi Martinez was on the way out. Emi Martinez is now sticking around, which means that they're out of the conversation, whilst Trafford still potentially wants a move, which puts us very much in the driving seat. There is also a little bit of discussion around the fact that Newcastle might want to have a look, but Pope is still there, and I'm not seeing much conversation around people actually wanting to sign Nick Pope. So hopefully that all points us in the general direction of Trafford is potentially heading in a Leedswards direction towards the end of this window, because if he does, that'd be genuinely brilliant. Like, we've been looking for a goalkeeper that we can sign and keep for a very long time, because that hasn't really happened. We've had Meslier, sure, but he's not really got the level that we need, and several times he's been dropped. Like, he was dropped for Joel Robles at one point, and then after that he was dropped for Caldalo, and he was initially only chucked in because Kiko Casilla was a racist nutjob. So I think at the end of the day, you're probably looking at getting a goalkeeper that can last us a very long time, as opposed to a goalkeeper that will be a short-term fix and then you move on to the next one. Like, for me, even if whoever we sign next doesn't have a stellar performance at the start of their time at Leeds United, I don't care. Stick behind them and they will come good, because we are far too good at the sort of recycling of players, at the someone's in, they've been a bit crap, get rid. As fans, that's what we do, because that's what we always do. But if we could stop doing that and stop pressuring the club to just drop players because we're not too fond of them, that would, I think, be very, very beneficial for absolutely everybody. Trafford really doesn't want Newcastle, does he? I know they're back in for him, and it seemed certainly last summer. I think he's trying to avoid them. I think last summer it was a case of it was very, very difficult for Trafford to not pick Man City, because at that time Man City hadn't signed Donnarumma. At that point, he very obviously looked at the situation and went, there's a number 1 spot going at Manchester City, and jumped at it, because you would, which left Newcastle sort of sitting in the dirt, but that doesn't particularly seem to be our problem. It's very funny. They signed Ramsdale instead, I believe, and then juggled between Ramsdale and Pope. Now, I don't believe Ramsdale has gone back there, which is sort of an interesting choice. I think Ramsdale would have potentially done quite well getting some minutes there, and Newcastle would have done okay with him. But I still, does it feel like they're trying to push Nick Pope out? I'm just going to do a quick Google for Nick Pope and see if there's any news around him. Oh, there's a little bit. 2 weeks ago. Ipswich make preliminary move to sign Nick Pope from Newcastle United, so it just feels like early talks more than anything. It doesn't feel like jumping in and trying to get the job done. But it looks like they will probably look for a new goalkeeper. I like that there was an article on the 2nd of March called "The Problem with Nick Pope." I've never seen Nick Pope being an active problem, but I don't think he's the sort of long-term solution. You're saying give Voba a chance? No, that's the opposite of what I'm saying. Voba has had enough opportunities. I'm saying if someone comes in that is fresh and new and hasn't been at the club before, at that point you don't chuck them in the bin because that's way too quick. Whereas Voba had the relegation season, then he fucked off because he found football elsewhere. Then he came back and was like, why won't you let me in the side? Well, it's because you're not good enough to be in the side. You're not good enough starting centre-back. You're not good enough starting left-back. Then we got to this season, and very obviously, having improved at centre-back and left-back, he's still not going to be good enough for the squad. So we need to find a move for Voba. There's no way that there isn't a Voba redemption arc, in my opinion. He is not a good enough player for that. Trafford's going to be England's number one in the next few years. We need to go all out and get him. I think so. I was very confused during the third place playoff match that for some reason Tuchel didn't go, okay, we'll just give Trafford some minutes. Because I think going forward, England are going to be more heavily leaning on James Trafford than they are Dean Henderson. Because Trafford is excellent and he's got a very long future ahead of him. It's more an issue of he needs the minutes to improve at that, which is obviously why he's trying to push for a move somewhere right now, which is why he's not happy at Man City, which I understand. I wouldn't be happy there either. He went there presumably with the promise of you're going to play a hell of a lot of football, and then he was immediately told, by the way, no, you're not. Which would be infuriating for absolutely anyone. If you go to any job and be told you're going to have a fairly significant role here, and then you're just immediately chucked out the window because, well, we found a newer, shinier thing who also makes mistakes with his feet, you're going to be a little bit grumpy and you're going to want to move somewhere else. Can you see Peru leaving? He should really be moved on and upgraded on. I think Peru leaves. I think the only reason Peru is in that squad is because we haven't really signed a direct Peru replacement, and I feel like we're potentially not in deeper talks for Joel Piroud to go elsewhere. Like, the reason that I think Ramazani isn't in the squad is that obviously another club will be wanting him right now, which is good, which will point us in the right direction of making a decent bit of cash off of him. Same for Joe Gelhardt. I imagine clubs are looking at him and going, oh, you know what, we could do with him. Even if it's not specifically Hull City, it looks like there's a direction for Gelhardt at the very least. Jack Harrison, rumoured to be wanted to go to, I think, New England Revolution were the club that were in for him. But again, that's another player that, in potential talks, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense for us to bring them to the US and potentially get them injured. That feels like that would be a little bit of a risk. So that's what I think one of the defining parts of the conversation is. Does it make sense for us to bring you? If no, then we won't bring you. And that I completely back, to be honest with you. Leeds should go after Jens Patahauga and Kasper Höh. First is left wing / cam. Höh is a centre forward, both with plenty goal points. What? Both valued at 12 million euros transfer marked. We were linked with them before, I'm convinced. But I'm not entirely sure what the sort of direction is there, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, Voba looks a broken footballer. He has had ongoing injuries at Leeds in the promotion season and his German club last season. A fully fit Voba would have been in the Austrian World Cup. I don't think he would have, to be honest with you. I think after the seasons that he's had, no. Leeds should go for the Croatian keeper. Was it Livakovic? Is he Croatian? Fairly sure it might be Livakovic. In which case, I think that might be a difficult one if he's where I think he is. Yes. He's at Fenerbahce. I think he's earning a hell of a lot of money at Fenerbahce. Let's see if there's a capology on him. Yeah, he's got a couple of years left of contract. And it wouldn't be easy to get him out of there. Annual salary isn't super high, but yeah, I don't know. He'd be good, but then again, if we're looking at players that we can sort of build a generation around, I think Livakovic is maybe on the old side. I think he's 31 already, which for a goalkeeper isn't on the older side, but at the same time, you kind of want to sign someone that you have potential to sell for a profit when you're in our position. And Livakovic, if we sell in 3 years, is going to be a 34-year-old goalkeeper who, let's be honest, they don't gain too much money. When you're looking for older goalkeepers, a lot of clubs will just wait for them to be free, such as Caldalo, which is interesting, I think. Hopefully Harrison as well. There are a lot of players who aren't Premier League level. Yeah, I think we've consistently proven that our squad last season was Premier League level. The players that we left out of the squad are potentially not if they are a step below, because I think whilst we did come 14th, we were still sort of in that position of teetering, maybe, where a couple of players that weren't good enough in the squad would have caused some serious problems. Like, if last season we would have had to have played Jack Harrison instead of Noah Okafor a few times, I think we miss out on some very, very, very vital points, and that causes some vast problems for us. Kepa for 5 million or Ortega, who's a free agent. Again, we're looking at older goalkeepers there. I think we need to lean young. That's why I think we're looking in the direction of Zion Suzuki. That's why I think we're looking in the direction of James Trafford. Both of whom are 23 years old, and both of whom you can build that generation around, because you can have them for a longer time rather than just, we'll get 5 years out of you, then you'll probably move on, because you'll be late 30s at that point. Ricardo Pepe, Sly, you keep making suggestions about Americans. We shall not be getting the Americans. That is probably not what's going to happen. If you want to try and bait me with, we might be signing American players, let's probably look in the direction of Yunus Musa, who at least we've been linked with by someone that isn't Sly 2.00. If Mesa and Brent 49 should do a swap deal, Peru for Raskin, that'd be very difficult to do. I don't think you could persuade. Is Raskin at Rangers? He is at Rangers. I don't realistically think that you could persuade. And this is, I know it's technically a similar hierarchy, but I don't think you could persuade the hierarchy at Rangers to do that, because it wouldn't be a fair swap. Because Raskin is worth significantly more than Joel Pirou. So a recent piece that came out, if I have a little bit of a skim, stated that Villarreal are in talks over a €20 million plus add-ons move for Rangers midfielder Nicholas Raskin. That's all well and good. Joel Pirou is not a €20 million player. And I wish he was. I wish he was that level, but he just isn't. Which means that swap deal isn't going to work really for anyone. And swap deals don't really make sense anyway, because the way that it works with squad cost ratio is it just completely knacks SCR stuff. Because you're, in theory, losing a valuable asset for nothing. So Pirou will have a few £1 million worth of book value going. If there's a swap deal, you've not made any money for Pirou, therefore you've technically lost him for free, which goes down as a significant cost, which means that your sort of profit is minimal. He would absolutely light up the Scottish League, don't get me wrong. Like, I feel like there's a lot of players that would light up the Scottish League. I think every single player that Leeds are potentially looking at getting rid of lights up the Scottish League, because it is not a good league. But I don't think Rangers are realistically in the position to be the ones that want to make that move. Does Barker extend his contract? I think so. I think it's a waiting game on both sides, though. I think Daniel Farke's waiting to see that his ambition is going to be matched, because Daniel Farke, in one of his final press conferences last season, effectively said, this, and this is what I want to see Leeds United do in terms of the window. If we do that, fantastic. Brilliant. Very, very happy with it. If we don't, then I'll be a free agent and I can go to a club that matches that ambition. Because at this point, Daniel Farke has put himself in a sort of driving seat. Daniel Farke has put himself in a position where he can go, no, I will decide whatever my next move is. Because he's good enough to do that now. He's shown that he can hang in the Premier League, and he's done that by making tactical adjustments, which is what a manager does. It's not just off the back of a good squad. He's waiting on the 49ers to prove that he wants to sign with them. And meanwhile, the 49ers are potentially waiting on Daniel Farke to do it again this season. So I think it might be a case of in the first international break, maybe, or the second, perhaps, because I know that the September and October ones got squished together. But I think it'll be a case of in the first half of the season they probably look at it and make a decision, but I don't think it's one that we will get in the transfer window. If it is, fine, brilliant, that'd be good. But in my opinion, it makes a little bit of sense that Daniel Farke is looking at the situation and going, I will wait for the club to make the moves that I know that they can make, and then that will cement the fact that they have belief in me, and that will give me belief in them. Because belief is a two-way street when it comes to like signing contracts. And I'm going to go back to the sort of working at a workplace thing again. If you are a professional in a field and you are told that in your workplace you will have these facilities to do your job, if you're like an artist or something, you're told you'll have these canvases and these paints and these paintbrushes, and then you show up and none of it's there, you might stick out your first contract, but you're not going to stay there longer than you need to. And at the same time, if you are providing all of these paints and the artist comes back with just a big old penis drawing, you're equally not going to renew their contract. So I think it makes sense on both sides to go, we'll just wait things out a little bit. We don't want to overly rush things. And I think there's still a very, very, very positive relationship there, because of course there is. But it works, if you ask me. But what do I know? What if he leaves in the winter or before? Who has the highest probability to be the Leeds manager? I don't know, and it would depend on who's on the market at the time. Because free agents, in terms of managers, shift so consistently. Because I promise you, at that first international break, we will have lost at least one manager. I think that's 6 matches into the season, but there will be at least one manager who is, at the very least, under a significant amount of pressure. But I don't know. How much for the penis drawing? We'll call it modern art. So at least £8,000 plus VAT. That's what we're going to go for. Right, let's have a look at manager free agents transfer market, not MLB. You stupid boy. There we go. Available managers. Southgate's available. Pep Guardiola is reportedly going to the Italy job, so that'd be difficult. Arne Slot is available. Nagelsmann, Joachim Low, Thomas Frank, Thiago Motta. Motta wouldn't be a bad shout, but it's a question of whether he'd come to Leeds, I guess. Thomason, Kasper Hjulmand, Conte. Imagine. Bielsa's available. Allardyce is available. Rob Edwards, Scott Parker. No, not Scott Parker. Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, in terms of options, there's not tons of brilliant ones at the moment. So you're potentially looking at trying to poach someone a lot of the time, and then if you don't, then you've got decisions to make. But I feel like it's not necessarily... The next manager that we'd be looking at is not necessarily already on the market, is what I would say around that one. And the ideal manager that I was initially looking at, I think, has already been hired by someone. Premier League managers. Am I imagining things? I think Eddie Howe will be available soon. I don't know if I'd want Eddie Howe. Yeah, the one that I would have initially wanted has been already hired, which is Marco Rosa. I was backing Marco Rosa when there was the conversation around should Daniel Farke be sacked. At that point, Marco Rosa was unemployed. And I was like, that'd be really, really nice. I'd love us to get that one done. And he's now unavailable. So, I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. People will become available and unavailable completely freely for who knows how long. So it's impossible to have an idea of who you would want as an sort of alternative, since you don't know who's on the market at the time. So, complicated. Joe Wiley's playing so much for players and being quoted 30 million plus players when last season. Goody 11.5, Beal 18, Stack 20, Okafor 19, all improved leads at good price. Because we're looking at different types of player. At the moment, we're looking at the sort of young, promising, upcoming players that we weren't last season. Last season, it was between 26, 28 years old. Players that will be able to come in having had a lot of experience. They know what they're doing already. That's their job. Whereas, alternatively, this season, we're going younger players, plenty of potential, players that we can bring up as maybe... What's the word for when you are the person in a cast behind the person that has the role? Not an alternate. You know what I mean? But someone that is able to sort of backfill behind an Antoine Stack. That would be Shea Charles' role. If Stack gets injured, Shea Charles comes in. He learns in that way, he improves, and he has the potential to keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. That's why we're paying a little bit more money, because we're looking at players that are of a different type, a different calibre, which I'm fine with, to be completely honest with you. Do you accept Clan? Not quite. Could do with another Justin-type player for left-sided cover, capable of covering full and centre-back roles if required. I think we will look at a left-back. That's something that I am an understudy. That'll do it. Thank you, Dr. Jack Hodgkins. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Romano said it was 55 million plus Somerville with 10 million add-ons. Yeah, somehow West Ham have gotten 65 million quid for Crescencio Somerville. Let's be honest, not worth that. Not worth that at all. But who knows? Is Farke waiting for the new home kit? He might be. That's something that I like. During the World Cup, I thought to myself, imagine if managers had to wear the kit of the team that they were managing. Just like a full, accurate version of whatever their sort of players were wearing. That'd be perfect. It'd change things so much. Like, what a world to live in. Anyway, as we have been doing in recent days and weeks, do you think... I will get through remaining comments. Apparently such a Farke signing, Wilson said he was the reason he joined him. 49 is doing things behind the scenes, outcomings, incomings, etc. these days. Take time, can't expect a signing a day. Yeah, I think the fact it's a little bit slower is fine. Do you think the radio silence is positive or negative with regards to transfers? I think it's positive. I think it means there's no way that we're screwing ourselves out of transfer moves. Like in the Ramazani era, it was a case of everything got leaked, mainly to Fabrizio Romano, and as soon as everything got leaked, we were in a position where sort of clubs could gazump us a little bit, and they'd see like, oh, Leeds are making a move for this player. We could do with this player. Leeds are offering this much. Well, we can offer this much. And then you lose that conversation. Whereas keeping the silence, or at least delaying the noise, means that we get the moves done where they would have initially been just cut off by rival teams. I was new to your channel. I'd like to hear your favourite Leeds match moment you remember. What made you admire the team, the impact of Leeds on your life? So, favourite Leeds match? I have a couple of options, actually. Can I have two choices? Because they are in the list for slightly different reasons, but also slightly similar reasons. I will wait for Belavine to respond before I continue on that one, but I will deal with this comment first. Leeds do not get a portion of the Somerville fee. We don't have a sell-on clause. That wasn't one of the add-ons. All of the add-ons were more around performance, as opposed to being around sell-on fees. No sell-on fee for Crescencio Somerville. We've made all the money that we can make off of him. Bosh. Okay, I get to have two. Right, so, first one. Leicester at home, we won 3-1. Fantastic. I was in the top of the East Stand. Fantastic night. Genuinely brilliant. Incredible stuff. I've never seen Elland Road so loud and bouncy, and even then I was in the top of the East Stand, and the noise, even up there, was spectacular. The other one, I'm going to break down into two. And this is cheating, but it's two matches that were within a week, so I'm allowing it. And it was within the same sort of storyline, so I think it's fair enough. First one, Stoke City, at home, 6-0 win. First time I've ever been in the North Stand, and the match starts with Stoke turning us around. To which everyone was like, well, that's not on, no one does that. Like, we always shoot that way first and this way second, so if they come in this way first, we'll miss all the action. We expect that we're going to break them down quite late on. That didn't happen. We scored 5 goals in the first half. It was hilarious. And I also saw Harry Gray's debut, which was a very nice time. And that rolled on into promotion day, which was lovely. Like the fact that we could all sort of hang out outside the East End, wait for the news, and then the absolute limbs at that point was just stunning. Brilliant, wonderful night. And that rolled into the match against Bristol City, which I'm also going to count because I was literally at the top of the East Stand. I was at the highest you can go. I was using like the lip of the stand as a table for a hot dog at one point. Was it a hot dog or was it the loaded chips that they do? I don't know. It was one of them. Loaded chips. Yeah, I remember that. And that was just nice. It was fantastic. It was one of my favourite memories. In addition to that, moment I remember. This one I'm going to pull out because it was my first ever memory. My first ever memory was being around at my granddad's house watching Leeds United get relegated from the Premier League. That's a fun one. What made you admire the team? The way that I'll put it is, and I got back into football in the Christensen era when we lost in the FA Cup. I can't remember who it was we lost to. It might have been Newport or something like that. But it was a sort of guarantee of disappointment, and it wasn't an admiration of the team, it was an admiration of the fans, and I was like, okay, I want back in, please, because I had a few years just being outside of football. And the impact of Leeds in my life is huge. Colossal. Right, let's get back to it. We'll get off to a slow start this season, as we won't have some of the signings ready to go after missing the America tour. We always do start slow, though, so I'm not too mad about that, to be completely honest with you. And it depends on what signings we get. I think that's a bigger question mark, in my opinion. My favourite Leeds game was Leeds against Liverpool when you both scored, and my favourite was Monaco when you both scored hat-trick. Very nice. I didn't get to see any of the European nights, which is kind of depressing, but that's fine. We move. That's okay. That happens. Will I be doing any vlogs this season? Potentially. It depends on the matches I can get to. I'm going to see if I can get to a friendly. And then outside of that, we'll see. I do know that we've got Fleetwood in the Papa John's, and I live just up the coast from Fleetwood. I live a tram ride away from Fleetwood, so I might see if I can get to that one. It'd be the under-21s as well, so that'd be quite interesting to see. I expect most of the outgoings will happen at the end of August. Potentially, yeah. We'll see more business towards the end of the window, but we always do. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream relatively sharpish because I got life to get back to. However, before we do, we're going to keep doing it because we've still not had an apology. And I know that Hannah Bone in my comment section earlier said that she prefers the conundrums. However, the conundrums a little bit too difficult sometimes. But we're going back to the world of Countdown. So we'll go 1 large. Oh, 75. 5 small. And we are after 710. Pace. This feels like it should be doable. Yeah, it's doable. Done it. 75 minus 5 is 70. 3 add 7 is 10. 70 times 10 is 700. You add the remaining 10. There we go. 15 to 1 was not better than Countdown. And you know what? We'll have a look at a conundrum as well. No, I'm not very good at these. Sod it. I'm going to solve it. Optometry. I was never getting optometry. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream there. If you enjoyed, please pop a like on the stream. That'd be hugely appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Become a channel member too. I am also going to go over to Prototype. It's not Prototype. I'm also going to see if I've got anyone to redirect to, because I like redirecting to people. It's nice. It makes people feel good. And we'll do a raid, potentially. We'll see. Redirect. Is there anybody? No. Ah, well. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you all later. Toodaloo. I thought I'd do an outro as well. Toodaloo.